พร้อมยังครับถ้าพร้อมไม่ถึงพร้อมเลยนะครับ Okay. So, dear colleagues, professor, lecturer, researchers, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of National Science Museum Thailand, I am Shivasit Bundikias as your host this morning. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to welcome you to the International Symposium on Science Festival 2022. This event has been arranged continuously alongside the National Science and Technology Fair for the 6th year. This year, the symposium focuses on the role of museums in promoting civic science literacy and citizen science. Museums serve to promote equal learning for all and promotes public engagement with citizen science, along with support people to develop the civic science literacy. There will be 3 sessions in this symposium. The 2 first sessions will be conducted in the morning, including keynote session and the session on role of museums in promoting civic science literacy and citizen science. And after lunch, we will reconvene and proceed the last session entitled The Impact of Citizen Science Projects on Societies and the Public. First, I am grateful to invite Assistant Professor Ravin Raviwong, President of the National Science Museum Thailand, to address the opening remark. And then after, Dr. Kandika Chern, Vice President of the National Science Museum Thailand, will give an introduction of the symposium this year. So, I'm pleased to invite Dr. Ravin Raviwong to address the inaugural speech. Dr. Raviwong, please.
สวัสดีครับ Distinguished keynote speakers, Associate Professor Jing Hongchen and Professor Aya Kimura, honorable speakers, ladies and gentlemen, it's quite an honor to be here with you this morning to join the 6th Symposium of Science Festival 2022. Right here in Bangkok, National Science Museum Thailand is organizing one of the largest science fair of the year, National Science and Technology Fair 2022. During the past 4 days, we have more than 50,000 visitors from all over the countries. They came and enjoy our exhibition and activities right here in Bangkok. There's still 4 days left, and if you have time, please come to visit us. Cannot make it this year. We'd like to have you as our guest next year. Exhibitions in the Science Festival, similar to those in the museums, not only provide knowledge and fun, but also gradually create science literacy for the people. The increasing demand of the science literacy is well established, and efforts are underway to position museums as community anchors, empowering them to promote civic engagement. This paved the ways of economic vitality by encouraging patrons to take an active role in finding solutions alongside scientists, science-based community issues as well. Citizen science enables people of all ages, cultures, and skills to engage in a real scientific research. In this way, lay people can collect or analyze data that is typically shared with professional scientists while provenly increasing public understanding of science. Engaged citizens will help solve the most critical problem of our time, and museum are crucial conduit to reaching people from all walks of life. These talks in this symposium will deliver a series of experiences from different efforts in the Asia-Pacific region, which aim to strengthen, firstly, the position of museums as community beacons of citizen science and civic engagement. Secondly, public growing interest in learning about and participating in local citizen science and civic engagement opportunities. And finally, the scientist needs to recruit, train, equip, and sustain citizen scientists. I'm very confident that these conversations among scientists, museum professionals, and various parties engaging in civic science literacy will promote citizen science action by providing support, training, and resources that leverage public museums' desire for meaningful, innovative, and locally situated STEM programming. Opportunity might inspire and encourage the follow and wider public to be involved and co-create and collaborate for sustainable development action in our time and the future. Thank you.
Hello. So thank you, Dr. Vivong, for your remark. And then I would like to invite Dr. Kanika Chern to take the stage to give a background introduction of the symposium. Dr. Kanika Chern, please. Moment, please. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for unmuting me. Well, the president of the National Science Museum, distinguished guests, dear speakers, good morning. The Symposium on Science Festivals has been part of the Thailand NST Fair for the 6th year. We aim that this symposium would be a platform for networking of knowledge sharing among experts and agencies who work on science communication, science popularization, and from a perspective of empowering the society. We started with the aim to discuss how scientific community can contribute and support sustainable development, create sustainable society. Well, as you know, sustainable is not only about energy or environment, but it also means equality, quality of living, balancing of consumption, and nature conservation, growth with the mindset for the future of man, living things, and earth. Therefore, with that in mind, a lot of discussion has been made, and we have shared a lot of ideas on how science museum and scientific community can work together on this sustainable issue. Today, this year, actually since last year, we have started to focus more on civic science literacy, which is the I believe is one of the final goal of why we try to encourage people to be to understand science and to be interested in science. But of course, at this point, we emphasize on the word civic because we want to make sure that the public who might not be very emphasize on the word civic because we want to make sure that the public who might not be very emphasize on the word civic because we want to make sure that the public who might not be very I think there is some echo because we want to make sure that the public who might not be very I think there is some echo because we want to make sure that the public who are not shall I continue? Okay. Who are not very keen on science or might not have a lot of understanding in science, but need to use science in their daily life, will become more rational and have a better understanding of certain knowledge of science and have good attitude towards science so that they are willing and happy to get closer to science and be able to follow the changing world. We have to accept that in the upcoming future, science and technology is something very important and crucial to our daily life. And to make sure that science and technology would be used appropriately to provide good living quality, equality, and sustainability. Civic science literacy is very important. Museums could have an important role in promote science literacy, and that do not limit to only science museum. There are many interesting and significant content in cultural and thematic museums, which could contribute to promote civic science literacy as well. Furthermore, we all know that understanding the concept of science and being inspired by science actually begins in the daily life activities, in nature observation, in appreciating what you see every day. Whereas in this place, science can be understood and applied in the real life context. Therefore, citizen science in the past year has been used as in many countries to engage the public as a tool, as an approach to involve public to scientific, to societal issues such as health, environment. And therefore, since last year at the National Science Fair, NSM began to bridge all the experts and agencies in Thailand and in the region to share their works and practices in citizen science in various areas, and hope that this will inspire more and more people and more organizations to consider the practice and the positive outcome of citizen science to raise the public awareness of science. Well, universities today also conduct a lot of outreach program in addition to their research and education work. University play a very important role in public outreach, especially in the local area where there are communities, children, and people who need information and maybe need some customized information or understanding about their environment. Through these symposiums, we also had hope that we could bring universities to share ideas and maybe show the good practice of how universities can promote civic science literacy and empower their community. I would like to thank all the speakers today, Professor Jen Hong, University of Manau, USA, Dr. Anna Labrador from Faculty of Arts, University of Melbourne, Australia, Dr. Balang Nuan Sang, Institute of Marine Science, Burapha University in Thailand, Associate Professor Zhao Ke from Electronic Science and Technology Museum in China, Professor Ganjar Kayadi, Museum of Zoology, Bandung Institute of Technology, Indonesia, Dr. Khalisam, River Care Program in Malaysia, Dr. Virun Limsawat, the Society and Health Institute, Thailand, Associate Professor Beno Goynard, Faculty of Science, University of Haitong, and Mr. Jerome Shi Shenko, and hope that this will lead to a good discussion and a networking among us in the future. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Dr. Chen, for giving the background of the Symposium on Science Festival 2022. Next, for the keynote session, I honorably welcome our keynote speakers, Associate Professor Dr. Chen and Professor Dr. Kimura. Dr. Chen will talk on S&T and University Museum as a multi-function platform and a keynote of multiple museum networks for STEAM and beyond, analyzed by initiator, activity, function theory, while Dr. Kimura will address her talk on the impact of citizen science projects on societies and the public. The presentation of Dr. Kimura will mention monitoring radiation after nuclear disaster, citizen science, and environmental justice. Before we start, I would like to introduce background of the two keynote speakers. Associate Professor Dr. Chen Hong Chen is a lecturer in the Department of Systems and Naval Mechatronic Engineering at National Cheng Kung University, Tainan, Taiwan. He has PhD in naval architecture from University of Michigan and Ann Arbor. In addition to his engineering specialty in multi-phase and turbulent flow, ship hydrodynamics, ship design, and optical measurement, he is interested in history of technology, underwater archaeology, and science, technology, and society, or STS studies. He devoted into NCKU museum administration work and museology study in the past 60 years. He had led research collection, exhibition, and university history divisions before his 4-year term of the director NCKU Museums from 2015 to 2018. Secondly, Professor Aya Kimura. She is a professor of sociology at University Hawaii Manao. She has MA in environmental studies from Yale and PhD in sociology from University of Wisconsin-Madison. Her books include Lady Asian Brain Moms and Citizen Scientists, The Gender Politics of Food Contamination After Fukushima. This one is published by Duke University Press and recipient of Leisure Carson Book Award from the Society for Social Study of Science. Another one entitled Science by the People, Participation, Power, and the Politics of Environmental Knowledge is co-authored with Kinchi. So, firstly, Dr. Chen, it is appreciative to start your presentation. Dr. Chen, please.
Okay, thank you. Let me share my files. Okay, is this clear for everyone?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Please start your presentation.
Okay, it's really my honor to be here to talk about a multifunction platform and museum networks, which may be helpful for us to develop our museum business, especially for scientific literacy and civic science. This is what we analyzed by the IAF theory that I invented and will be introduced later. This is museum business, what we analyzed by the IAF. So there are some echoes. This is museum business, what we analyzed by the IAF theory. There are some echoes. Introduced later. This is business, but analyzed by the Shall I continue or wait for?
You can continue, please.
Okay, so first let me introduce the problem. The problems for science and technology museums, especially in Taiwan, as later developed societies, we have some special problems because when we learn from Western countries for many modernization things, museums is one of them, but we maybe have some motivation problem because we built a science museum based on something not only for science and education. Maybe it's because we also want to have something related to nationalism, pride, or self-esteem. And we learn new museology without enough practicing the museum work in the old way. So maybe we copy the science center without experience of traditional museum work. And therefore, we may also lack of a long tradition of scientific study in museums. So the results caused several problems. The first one is mission problem. Maybe we forget to collect and do research in a museum. Maybe this is related to value problems because we don't know what to collect or what should be collected in a museum. And therefore, we got a task problem because we only exhibited science knowledge and the samples to visitors, especially students. It becomes a kind of informal science education. We forget probably to show scientific studies to the general public. So we face some challenges, like how to distinguish us from science center, or more basically, why do we want to be different from a science center? Sometimes this is also confused by government officials which support the building and the operation of museums. So this is about the role of science and technology museums. The challenges for science and technology museums in these kind of later developed societies, what we have to ask, what's the purpose of a science and technology museum? Of course, we want to show science and technology the appreciation, or it becomes an education of science for the young people. But what else? There should be something more. So I think we need new roles and functions for science and technology museums because we lack museums whose focus is about humans' activity of scientific study, instead of just to show the nature or humans' understanding of nature to the general public or students. We also lack of museums of social sciences instead of social issues. We have a lot of museums of social issues, such as War Museum, Labor Museum, or something like that. But we didn't focus on social science. For example, it's about the political science versus political event. We may show some exhibition of important social movement, which is a political event. But we rarely show how scientists or scholars to do their political survey, something like that, especially compared to the natural science. After solving these problems, maybe we know what to collect and research. And then about university museums also face some challenges, but the university museum has a special status because we have some good chances, because it's a good place to test new ideas. We are in a university, so just like other departments in the university, we can see a university museum as a lab for museology. So we can test a new experimental practice in all kinds of tasks and even in administration. So the roles of a university museum would be to connect different disciplines and the units within university, or to connect the campus, industry, and the community. So the responsibility for university museum must include one task to close the gap of museum works on natural and social scientific activities. So the challenges for university museums, when we usually have very limited resources than public museums, especially national museums, we have this big challenge, and this is probably true for many countries, including European countries, but maybe USA or China is an exception. And we also have other missions to do than general public museum. So my suggestion to the solution to this problem is multifunction platform and museum networks. This is the major topics today. So let me introduce this IAF theory, initiator activity function theory, which I developed more than 5 years ago. At the beginning, I only found 3 modes, but soon after my first presentation, I found 5 modes. Under the background problems that we face limited resources, and we are under the trends of new museology, which asks us to reach out, and the higher education is undergoing a redefinition period. I think we can develop new exhibition ways. Probably we can revive some objects from our collection. We can do something related to social aspects of natural and biomedical topics. We can show methodologies of social sciences, and maybe try to do something about abstract scientific concepts. We may have some possible new contributions. Maybe museum can play a role of public policy forum. or we are a part of formal and informal education. For traditional museum work, we are already part of informal education, but maybe we can try to build a model for informal education, or new models, new ways. And so we need new operation model. So that multifunction platform could be the answer, or methodology to develop new operation methods. Here, when I talk about multifunction, I mean, we still have traditional functions like collection, research, exhibitions, but we also have new functions like entertainment, policy forum, or for university museum, we can help a university to recruit new and good students, something like this. For the platform, I mean, not only a platform between the curator of museum and the visitors, we can also try to emphasize something between the visitors, among visitors from different background. And we can try to make this platform to be between visitors and the other actants. The actants is a term borrowed from actant network theory, ANT, from science, technology, and society study, which means an actant or somebody called actor could be human, could be animal, or could be some object without life. So that will open our vision to think about the problems we face. So let me introduce this IAF theory. When we try to make our museums as a multifunction platform, this theory could be helpful to help us to think about that. Because NCKU museums experience, when I worked there for more than 11 years, since the beginning of our foundation in 2007, we tried to test many new roles and functions in this general museum, comprehensive university. And therefore, we got some experience. There were several experimental exhibitions carried out, which are all effective, engage faculty and students and the neighborhoods, communities in some way. So this theory tried to provide a simple model about the relationships among exhibition, collection, and the platform. These three things. Why I chose three things? Because exhibition is a major explicit activity, or we can expand it to any outreach activities for a museum. That's a very obvious choice because we must have this activity. And the collection is the core implicit activity for a museum, which distinguishes us from science center. The science center may not have this function. So these two things, one explicit, one implicit, are important roles. And the platform or multifunction platform is the new thing that we can play with. So I try to build the relationship among these three. So this theory said that there's an initiator or motivation, which is one of these three things, either exhibition, collection, or platform. Then to reach this object, we may design a major activity. So we will conduct this activity, of course. Then when we do this activity, maybe we'll accidentally find that an extra function is coming out. When I say extra, it implies accidental, not intentional, not planned. And that will be a bonus for our museum. So there are at least 5 modes to describing the order and the roles of them. Let me introduce them. I call them mode A, B, C, D, E. We have collection, platform, which may be like a research or exchange or public forum debate, and any outreach activities such as exhibition or education activity. This table summarizes the relationship. These 3 things, any one of them could be initiator. the other one, another one could be activity, and the other one will be extra function. So maybe we start from collection and we want to exhibit. So we have an exhibition as the main activity. Then through this major activity during the exhibition, maybe we found that it could be a platform for example, public forum. Or in mode B, we start from collection, we do platform, of course, and then accidentally we found out platform could be a role or a place to do other outreach activity. Or mode C, we start from outreach program because we maybe have some education activity or purpose to cooperate with someone, and we found that we need to collect more things. So we designed the collection activity, but accidentally we found that it could be a platform for other things. And mode D is start from platform through outreach, we get collection. Mode E, we start from outreach, we build a platform, and then have a bonus collection. I've found examples for these 5 modes from different university museums experience. The first 3 are from our own experience. The other 2 are from University of Tokyo or a Greek university. But I've not found an example for mode F. These are examples. For mode A in NCK Museum, we have collections, we have exhibition, and then during my guided tour to the 2 Nobel laureates, we stopped in front of a very boring panel, and then they start to talk, discuss with an older professor and president and vice presidents of NCKU because they are discussing some higher education policy. For mode B, we have collections, and this led to a new platform to talk about education policy between professors, because this is about university history, how a university should be developed. And so the conclusion is an accidental spatial exhibition of customized university ranking exhibition. For mode C, I will introduce that later because we have a spatial large complicated exhibition. For mode D, it's interesting. University of Tokyo has built IMT, the intermediate earthquake, which is a cooperation activity with Japan Post Office, located at the post office building next to Tokyo Railway Station. The purpose is to promote University of Tokyo. So that's the initiator. And to fulfill that function, they must have activities. So they have many artistic performance art activity over there. And during a theatrical play, they found that they can collect new artifacts for the University of Tokyo's museum. Mode E is University of Petra's Toy Story, which started with a teaching activity. So they designed an education research. I think it's a good platform between university professors and other elementary school or high school teachers. During their works, they found that they can get extra university collections of children's toys, which made several decades ago. So that enrich the university museum's collection accidentally. So let me introduce the multiple museum networks because museum networks may be helpful to help us to build the relationship among these platform or other activities. The reason we need a network for museum is that we can get mutual benefits. We can share resources, especially to reduce costs. For example, a traveling exhibition is a very good way. We reduce the cost of building new exhibitions. We just need to pay a little bit traveling fee. We can also develop museum in many aspects we can discuss with each other, learning from each other. For example, for university museum, in this red black box, usually in a traditional way, we have administrative framework, which is a vertical framework because you belong to a university, but university, especially public university, belongs to Ministry of Education. So maybe also inside the university, you have other peer museums in other departments or colleges. This is vertical relationship, but what I suggest is that we can try to develop multiple level horizontal networks that can cross administration barrier, and we can do museum to museum connection directly. We can have one micro network, which is intramural network. We can try to connect our peer museums within the same university. For example, National Taiwan University has a museum group. We can build 3 meso networks, which include the university museum network with other universities. We can have local network with other neighborhood public or private museums. We can also connect it to the museums with a similar topic. So we can connect to other museums outside the university or outside your institutes. And we can also have a macro network, which is an international network, like today's work or other. I would like to say more about meso and the macro networks. For meso networks, first one is University Museum Network. For example, this is the logo of Polish University Museum Association. I was inspired by their work when I learned from their works in 2016 ICOM meeting in Milan, Italy. So after that, I started the Taiwanese Alliance of University Museum in 2017. At the beginning, like this picture shows, we have only 5 founding members. But after 2 years, we built up to 20 members now. We have several shared traveling exhibitions. This one is very special, which was designed by a Czech museum. And this traveling exhibition traveled to more than 15 sites, including university museum, local museum, elementary school, and high schools. The second is a local or regional network, such as a county museum group or University Museum Association of Kyoto in Japan. This picture shows their introduction in annual meeting of UMAC. We can have theme networks by topics like art museum group, medicine or maritime or natural histories. The international network like ICOM or the committees under ICOM like UMAC for university museums, CMUSET for science and technology museums, which are all good ways to exchange ideas. Additionally, maybe you heard the Association of Pacific Rim Universities. I know Chulalongkorn University in Thailand is their member. When APRU have their annual meetings, they have a session for university museums. Or maybe about 5 years ago, I got an idea, but I didn't promote this. Today, I would like to say it again. Maybe we can build a Southeast Asia University Museum Network because now online meeting is very easy. And when we are rich, we can have in-person meeting. Okay, then I will give you an example. This is a big exhibition we call IC Taiwan exhibition organized by NCKU Museum. It won UMAC Award second place in 2017. It was exhibited in Czech Republic between 2015 and 16. Exhibited in 2 cities, Prague and Brno, with 3 institutes at 4 venues, which are National Technological Museum, City of Prague Museum, Mendel Museum, and the Library of Masaryk University at Brno. I would like to talk about the structural flow of production of this complicated exhibition. Starting from NCKU Museum, the first one we have a micro network, intramural network. We contact our different departments, faculties, and museums, try to collect more artifacts for the exhibition. And then through them or by ourselves, we try to contact the industry, local government, local industry, and the museums, and some other personals. There are many of them to cooperate with their artifacts or history. One temple even come with us to Prague. And then, of course, we need some international help from diplomats, foreign museums, and universities. Through them, we can successfully finish this complicated exhibition. So we have these three levels of networks. Conclusion: it's important, possible, and helpful to become a multifunction platform and to develop networks for museums. There are three levels of horizontal networks: macro, meso, and micro. The meso ones are the key because usually we lack of this kind of network. And multifunction platform and networks could be powerful tools for museums in the future. I hope these two tools can help us to develop new models or new museum activities in the future. The cooperation could be from intramural to international. Okay, thank you very much.
So thank you, Dr. Chen, for your provoking presentation. It's quite interesting to listen to your analysis from the TAF theory and also your proposal about the network that you already done between the institutions, inter-institution, and also internationally. So it's quite very interesting, and we hope well that your idea about the network in the Southeast Asia or East Asia university museum can be realized in the future. So next, I would like to invite Dr. Kimura to share her experience on science, citizen science project and its role from the contemporary society. So please, Dr. Kimura.
Thank you. So thank you so much for the organizers for the invitation to talk at this symposium. And thank you so much everyone for being here today. So in this presentation, I would like to share first my research on citizen science after the Fukushima nuclear accident, and then draw the broader insights on citizen science and perhaps sort of preliminary thoughts on the museum's role in citizen science. Now, before I start my presentation, I should clarify that I will not go into theoretical debates on the many definitions and typologies of citizen science. So in this talk, simply, when I say citizen science, it refers broadly to scientific knowledge production participated by regular citizens or non-experts. So one of the examples of citizen science is the citizen monitoring after the Fukushima nuclear accident. As you are probably aware, in March 2011, there was a major earthquake in the northeastern part of Japan. It caused a massive tsunami, which then disabled the cooling systems of the nuclear reactors in the Tokyo Electric Company, or TEPCO's Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power stations. After the accident, there was little information for citizens about the extent of contamination. Now, there is a long history of promotion of nuclear power in Japan by the industry and the government. The government, utility industry, and other corporations came to be known as the nuclear village, a close-knit community of powerful actors that championed nuclear energy as safe and economical. The nuclear village was very powerful and included key elites in politics and economy. It helped to suppress social opposition against nuclear energy projects. People who contested the pro-nuclear policy were ridiculed and marginalized in academia as well as in policy and economic sectors. With this history, many citizens saw the government's and corporate pronouncement of safety after March 11th with deep skepticism. When the experts and the government said that the accident impact was minimum, many citizens were not able to trust such evaluation. People wanted to know the true extent of the accident's impacts. So this led to several different kinds of citizen science. My own work has focused on citizen science projects that collected data on food contamination. In Japanese, these citizen science organizations tend to be called citizen radiation measuring organizations. So I refer to them in this presentation as CRMOs, Citizen Radiation Measuring Organization. So what are these citizen radiation measuring organizations? These are the places where regular citizens could bring in their food products and have them tested for radiation contamination. Say you have a garden and you want to make sure that your vegetables from it are safe to eat, or your relative sent you fruits and you want to make sure that they are not contaminated. So you can bring in these things to CRMOs and check the radiation levels. CRMOs are unlike a professional lab that they are operated by non-experts. Regular citizens pooled resources together and bought detectors, or sometimes detectors were donated and learned how to operate them. So why did regular citizens want to start CRMOs? I conducted many interviews with people active in CRMO communities. And so let me share a story of one woman that I interviewed in my research. So this was a woman in her 40s who lived to the south of Tokyo. She was married with one child. When the accident happened, this interviewee said that the government and the local city authority insisted that there was no need for concern. Still unsure, she tried to do everything that she could to protect her family. So she decided to try to stay indoor as much as possible. She did not let her son play outside. It was soon the spring break. It was in March after the disaster. And he wanted to go outside and play with his friends. However, she insisted that he stayed inside. She was also careful with foods. She did not buy food from the affected areas. But after several months, she was still concerned. And so she decided to send in her son's urine sample to a professional lab. She wanted to check on the level of his internal radiation. The result from the professional lab came back and really shocked her because despite all these precautions that she had taken, it showed the urine had cesium, although a small amount. So this incident, she told me, propelled her to start the CRMO to prevent further exposure for her child, but also for other children in the neighborhood as well. Her story resonated with those by other interviewees. Women particularly shared their stories of feeling responsible to feed safe food. In Japan, food preparation for family is still considered a feminine domain. Shopping and cooking food for families are usually seen as women's responsibility. So many women felt the sense of obligation to feed safe food, but many felt that they could not trust the government and the industry. After the accident, they said they could no longer trust even scientists because many of them were so-called goyogakusha, or the government patronized experts with strong ties to the nuclear village. So taking matters into their own hands, these regular citizens established CRMOs. My research assistants and I counted more than 70 CRMOs. Vast majority of them were established after the Fukushima accident, although a handful had been established after the Chernobyl nuclear accident. CRMOs were established across the nation, as you could see on the slide. And so they were not only around Fukushima area, indicating the widespread concern about radiation amongst citizens. So what are the contributions of these CRMOs? I want to talk about at least 5 functions. Those are expanded data, fine-grained data, education with citizens, a safe space, and solidarity building among civil society groups. So let me go through each function briefly. First, of course, of the function of the CRMO is the data that it collected on food contamination. CRMOs were able to measure a lot of food samples brought in by regular citizens. A photo on the slide shows a logbook of the measurements of one of the CRMOs that I visited. As in the case of these CRMOs, citizens were able to do a lot of testing. And this was remarkable because CRMOs were established by regular citizens, non-experts. They had to learn how to operate the detector, control for the background radiation, and interpret the estimates. CRMOs made significant efforts to make sure that the testing was done correctly. CRMOs honed in their measuring skills by various manners. They consulted trusted experts. They also talked to equipment manufacturers as well as other CRMOs. A network of CRMO was also formed to share information and enhance their skill as well. For instance, they sent out a standardized sample that could be used by other CRMOs to ensure that the measurement was done correctly. CRMOs not only did a lot of testing, but they did so in a way that responded to citizens' concerns. For instance, CRMOs tried to lower the minimum detectable level of the testing. Even as the government started to do testing of food products, many people were frustrated that it had a high minimum detectable level. When the official testing result came back saying ND or non-detectable, it may be because the minimum detectable level was set high. In order to respond to this citizen's concern, many CRMOs tried to lower the minimum detectable level. For instance, they ran the detector for a long time and also tried to have a bigger and denser samples. This was their effort to render the invisible contamination visible. Unless there is data and unless you take the data in such a way, contamination does not become recognized. In addition to providing scientific data on contamination, CRMOs played diverse roles in the aftermath of the accident. So first, they were helpful in educating citizens about radiation measurement. They provided information to people who brought in foods to be tested to their offices. Many offices had a folder in the office that was used to explain the detector and the measurement process. Part of the reason was that the staff members wanted to demonstrate the validity of their results, but they also wanted to educate other citizens about the science of radiation measurement. The picture on the slide on the left is taken from a booklet published by a group of CRMOs. This booklet also contained a lot of information for citizens about radiation measurement, explanation of technical terms, as well as some tips for lowering one's exposure during the daily lives. In addition to education, CRMOs also provided a safe space for people to share concerns. So these are pictures from two CRMOs that I visited. On the left, you see a sofa that people can hang out. On the right, there's a space for kids so that mothers can spend time as they waited for the measurement result and chat. Like these CRMOs, many envisioned their role not only in measuring the level of contamination, but also in making a space for citizens to share their concerns. This function was important, as one female interviewee put it, because, quote, people cannot do it outside. Now, it is important to understand the gendered dynamic here. There was a widespread stereotype that chastised women for being too emotional and overreacting to the effects of the accident. On the one hand, the officials insisted that there was no need for concern after the accident. The government, for instance, started to encourage people to eat produce from the affected area. Its nationalistic rhetoric framed that the purchasing of the affected area's food was a patriotic act of sympathy for the victims. It also helped to create the environment where avoiding the products was seen as harming the disaster victims. When people expressed radiation concern, it was equated as spreading quote unquote harmful rumors. The idea of harmful rumors was used to imply that people expressing radiation concerns or about food contamination were spreading unfounded rumors. Women in particular were a frequent target of the criticism of this harmful rumor. This was because of the gendered division of labor. Women tend to be in charge of food preparation and shopping. Additionally, there is a long history where the pro-nuclear groups critiqued women as overly concerned with the radiation impacts using sexist stereotypes. The idea was that women were not good with technology or science, emotional and overreacting to the radiation, and this drew on the long-standing sexist stereotype of women. So it was in this context that CRMOs saw themselves as a safe space for people, particularly women, who are worried about radiation, to talk about their concerns and their feelings. Finally, CRMOs were also important in helping to connect citizens across the country. For instance, there emerged a network of CRMOs called Everyone's Data Site. Not every CRMO that we discovered participated in it, but many did. They shared know-how of measurement and data, and also started work on common projects like measurement of soil contamination. In other studies on citizen science too, it has been found that citizen science can be a tool not only for scientific data collection, but also a tool for solidarity building among civil society groups. By collecting data and sharing data together over time, citizen science activities can help foster trust and mutual recognition among citizens groups, and to help advocate for better environment and health together collectively. So here, let me shift gear a little bit and let us think about the social importance of citizen science. In the mainstream debates on citizen science, scientific contribution of citizen science has been emphasized. Citizen science can add data or expand the geographic coverage of data thanks to the participation by the wider public. Another argument is that citizen science can enhance science indirectly by improving the scientific literacy of the public. These functions are no doubt important. But the growing literature on citizen science is pointing out that we also need to explore how citizen science can contribute to fairness and empowerment. That is, citizen science has emancipatory potentials to reduce oppression, increase fairness, and reduce inequities. Particularly in regards to citizen science on sustainability issues, the concept of environmental justice is crucial. This concept, environmental justice, highlights the issues of structural disparity in society and how that affects the distribution of environmental harms and benefits. That is, the environmental issues are never only about pollutants and health impacts. They are simultaneously about social systems and institutional structures that create patterns of distribution of environmental goods and bads. Considering environmental issues or sustainability issues as a matter of inequality, social power, and privilege, citizen science has a strong potential in pursuing environmental justice in multiple ways. First is diversity. Citizen science can contribute to diversifying knowledge production. Citizen science has been a tool for subaltern groups to articulate their life experiences and to counter the dominant narratives spread by more powerful groups. Second, citizen science can help recognize inequity and oppression. Citizen science can call attention to the unfair distribution of pollution burdens and the ways that social inequality and power relations shape environmental issues. Thirdly, citizen science can give public voice to participants at a time when scientific knowledge and technical expertise are crucial to many important decisions. Citizen science provides an entry point for regular citizens into a highly technical world of health and environmental policies and regulations. So for example, in the case of radiation monitoring that I mentioned earlier, CRMOs helped to diversify knowledge by adding data that is rooted in citizens' lived experiences and actual needs. Their data also helped marginalized groups in policy debates. Women in particular try to use the scientific data to legitimize their voices and their concerns. Some CRMOs have worked for accountability and justice, for instance, by working with the displaced people in their litigation against the government and TEPCO. They have been also raising the broader environmental justice issues with the nuclear energy, such as the exposure of workers even during the normal operation, and how the reactors are located in socioeconomically marginalized areas. So in short, citizen science can be a part of the broader struggle for environmental justice. So I realized that this is a symposium for the museum. So I want to conclude by asking, what does this all mean for the museums? I'm not a museum expert, so I am hoping that this lecture can help start discussion among you to think about the roles that museums can play in helping citizen science expand its emancipatory potentials. So here are some preliminary thoughts. I have discussed the importance of linking citizen science with environmental justice. One of the things that the museums could do is to collaborate with civil society organizations that are already working towards environmental justice in organizing citizen science. For instance, there have been many citizen science projects by communities exposed to toxins from industrial operations. The polluting industries tend to be located in the socioeconomically marginalized communities. When these communities experience environmental and health effects, they often need to demonstrate that by scientific data, but may not have expertise and resources to do so. Experts in academic institutions have been important allies in these kinds of citizen science projects. Museums with its staffing and resource capacities could play a similar role. For this to happen, of course, it is important that museums to start with building relationship with the community groups and to really hear what their needs and hopes are. Building trust is the important first step. Now, second, even when museums have a citizen science that is initiated by experts rather than community groups, it is important that museums make sure that citizen science reflects diversity of voices. This entails asking, what are the social profiles of the volunteers or the participants? Who is participating in citizen science and who is not? The broader literature on citizen science has pointed to the possibility that the poor and the working class may not have resources, including time as resources, to participate in citizen science. In the situation when women are disproportionately shouldering the care responsibility in addition to many working outside jobs, they may also face additional challenges in participating in citizen science. And so museums can help think about the representation and diversity of it in citizen science. Thirdly, museums can also be a public space for disseminating the results of citizen science and for creating thoughtful dialogue in society. Here, museums can play an important role in diversifying representation of a given issue to include divergent voices, particularly noting the power relations in society. Museums can help community groups to use the space to outreach to the broader public to educate them about environmental justice issues. Some citizen science projects not only collect scientific data, but also people's stories and testimonies. Both should be considered important data to be exhibited to the public. For instance, in a citizen science done by an indigenous community in Canada, chronicled by Sarah Blacker at Toronto University, and this was the citizen science on pollution from fossil fuel industry, the group and the collaborating researchers collected not only the level of toxins, but also people's stories and experiences. And importantly, Blacker points out, the scientific data and stories are both presented in the final report and are given the same kind of weight to give fuller picture of the impacts of the industrial pollution. Exhibitions at museums can follow a similar approach in order to lift up the lived experiences of the marginalized groups. And finally, museums can also help contextualize scientific issues in the longer history and the broader socioeconomic and cultural issues. Citizen science data taking can be expansive in terms of geography, but can be limited in terms of duration. Museums can help situate the current data in the longer historical perspective and the broader socioeconomic issues. In addition to exhibiting scientific aspects, museums can also curate information about socioeconomic, cultural, and ethical issues. Now, this task may be difficult for a single museum to accomplish, and perhaps is a very good opportunity for multiple museums with different expertise, say science, history, art, ethnology, and so on, to collaborate. So to conclude, in this presentation, I illustrated one example of citizen science and summarized their diverse contributions. Importantly, citizen science's contribution is not limited to the production of scientific data or the improvement of scientific literacy of the general public. I have argued that citizen science has emancipatory potentials to improve environmental justice. Environmental and health problems arise as the complex interplay of social structure, economic system, policy institutions, gender relations, in addition to biochemical and physical elements. Citizen science can contribute not only to inform us on biophysical aspects of environmental and health issues, but also on social and political aspects. And museums can play an important role in diversifying voices and knowledge, giving a space for marginalized social groups, and contextualizing the environmental issues in the broader social, cultural, as well as scientific dimensions. So what are the ways that museums nurture transformative practices of participatory research? I hope that this presentation serves as a starting point for active dialogue on this question. Thank you so much.
So thank you, Professor Kimura. Your presentation is quite thoughtful, and I think it gives me some reflection about the inclusive museology. It's quite important, and you show well that how the citizen or the lay people can be included in the science production, and also can give an impact to the society as well. So I would like to grateful to thank the both keynote speakers for this keynote session. And we hope well that for the both of you can join us in the other occasion as well. So next, I would like to proceed to the session 1 that about the role of museums in promoting civic science literacy and citizen science. And first speaker will be Dr. Anna Labrador. She will talk on educating the muses in 2022, university museums in the Philippines in the context of pandemic and contemporary society. Firstly, I would like to introduce Dr. Labrador. Now she is Honorary Senior Fellow of the School of Historical and Philosophical Studies, Faculty of Arts, University of Melbourne in Victoria, Australia. She has PhD from the University of Cambridge in 2000. Before stepping down as Deputy Director General for Museums at the National Museum of the Philippines on December 1st, 2021, Dr. Labrador was for 10 years responsible for research development, museology, and technical assistance. Presently, Dr. Labrador is a member of the International Council of Museum Standing Committee for Museum Definition, Prospects, and Potentials, which is shaping a new definition for museums worldwide. So please, Dr. Labrador, take the stage. Moment, Dr. Labrador, I will try to unmute you.
Thank you very much for that introduction. And also I'd like to thank the organizers of this symposium. This is my second time, actually. The first time was in 2018, and it was actually an in-person symposium. So it's really, I'm very honored. And I was very impressed when I went to see the science fair in 2018. So I know that this is such a big thing for the National Science Museum in Thailand. So let me share my PowerPoint. Okay. Yeah. Can you see that now? All right.
Yes.
So I'm starting off with a kind of reproduction of my article that was entitled "Educating the Muses," and I've featured that part because I wanted to.
Could you please place the full screen presentation, please, on the right?
Oh yeah.
Below. Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. So
okay,
that's
better. Yes.
So I wanted to kind of look back on that, and a lot of things have happened since the article in 2000, and so I'll talk a little bit about that as we go along. So one of the things that I wanted to find out is how, as museum people, you've celebrated your International Museum Day. So a few weeks before the start of the International Museum Day, which is celebrated every year on May 18, I gave a presentation on how this milestone could be meaningfully transmitted to museum colleagues and audiences. So how did you celebrate IMD? I've harvested this from the internet. So National Museum Singapore had a lot of children coming in through their doors and with their parents, and it was quite a lively scene. Dr. Chen participated in the International Museum Day hybrid session with the Birla Industrial and Technology Museum. And in Malaysia, the Islamic Arts Museum actually had educators take over their Instagram, and it was quite a fascinating program. But before I begin with my talk, I just want to also underscore the importance of our solidarity as museum workers with Ukraine. And here is actually a scene of, library in Lviv, where piles of cardboard and reams of plastic film filled the lobby. So it continues. So the humanitarian aid of a more cultural kind is really quite important, and we need to give them support. So this is an article from the images from the article in the New York Times written by Jason Farago on August 8, titled "Rescuing Art in Ukraine with Foam, Crates, and Cries for Help." So we do need to support them, and perhaps you can go to this site so that we could see what kinds of support we may extend to them. So I'll just give a brief outline of my my talk, and also I just wanted to just in case you don't know where the Philippines is, and relative to Thailand, this is the map. So I did a brief survey of university museums in the Philippines. I also asked myself, whose science are we talking about? And citizen science, where do we, actually get it? How do we do it? How do we advance the role of the university museums as community centers? What are the values that we can present? Because 21st century museums are a lot different, and we need to emphasize the notion of inclusion and sustainability and access. So when I was surveying the university museums in the Philippines, there are actually 2,400 education institutions in the Philippines, including universities, colleges, higher education institutions, and polytechnics. So more than 70% of them have museums and collections, majority of which feature science exhibitions. Some use the museums as laboratories, classrooms, discovery spaces, and museography workshops. And they focus on students with some, of course, additionally for community members. And I'll talk a little bit about that. The reason why there's a lot of higher education institutions, there are 110 million Filipinos, and about 65% are between the ages of 15 and 64, and the average age is 25.7 years. So we are a very young country. And I just want to show, well, the ICOM actually has what is called the UMAC, or the University Museums and Collections. An example, which is one of my favorites actually, is this the Central Luzon Agricultural Museum, because it's not just science, but it's technology of the agricultural kind. But I always kind of tell them, since this is really the kind of upgraded version of the museum. They've done a lot to update the exhibition. But it's actually an ethnographical museum. So I think there's a lot of potential for university museums to be kind of multidisciplinary, and so there's a lot of scope for our work as museum professionals. So I want to show you that they just don't focus on the tangible aspect of agriculture, but also the intangible ones. No? So this is what they call the Arachio and their performers from San Jose Peñaranda in Nueva Ecija, close to where the museum is. And Arachio is a century-old theater ritual in honor of the Holy Cross, performed every month of May in part of Nueva Ecija. And it has something to do also, of course, with hoping and making sure that there's good harvest. So I really asked, myself, whose science are we promoting? And there are a number of ways to understand science beyond the European North American framework. So local communities may have their own ways of, explaining what the phenomena around them is, and also their environments. Okay. So this is some images from the Mindanao State University, Iligan Institute of Technology and Natural History Museum. And they're featuring zoological and biological specimens. This is a really quite stunning sunfish, very difficult to preserve, the mola mola. So, and just to show you a lot of collections. We were there in 2018 because we wanted to also tour our mobile museum boxes from the National Museum, and it featured the important, endemic species and the biodiversity of the island of Mindanao and the southern part of the Philippines. So most universities were really established as teaching museums to complement classroom teaching. In the Philippines, the first museum as we know it began at the oldest university in the Philippines and Asia, which is the Universidad de Santo Tomas, founded in 1611. And they were called the Gabinete de Física to teach medical and science students. So this is how it looks now, actually. So it's very, very sleek and modern. But just to give you an idea of the long history. When we talk about whose science, we actually think sometimes of all these bottled specimens that we find around the zoology department or biology department of universities. And sometimes, because they're presented this way, they're not very interesting. There are just a brief look of some of the university museums. This is in Mindanao again. So this is the Museo de Oro Museum, which is it's actually in the Xavier University, which is run by the Jesuits. There is the Palawan State University Museum. So this is kind of the more regular way of the way they would present exhibitions. And then when the University of the Philippines, Los Baños Museum of Natural History celebrated their founding anniversary, because it was still at the height of the pandemic and there was a lockdown, they decided to put together a virtual exhibition. So we sometimes ask ourselves, what where did citizen science really come from? What inspired it? More famously, there have been a lot of programs. Sorry, it's not Richard, but David Attenborough's Life on Earth is an example. You have the BBC and PBS programs on TV and World Service, like the radio broadcasts from Voice of America and others, of course, in the non-English speaking world. And you would have game shows like in the UK called Animal, Mineral, Vegetable, which is a long time ago, but that really inspired a lot of curiosity. It sparked curiosity. And of course, science quizzes, competitions, and technology, science and technology fairs. Sorry. So what I wanted to also offer the audience is that there is a new definition that is about to be voted in this month, actually, at the ICOM Triennial meeting in Prague. So this is the proposed definition, because we wanted to really emphasize the importance of finding the right kind of basis for defining the museum and reflect contemporary issues. So this is the definition. A museum is not for profit, permanent institution. It will serve a society that researches, collects, conserves, interprets, and exhibits tangible and intangible heritage. Open to the public, accessible and inclusive, museums foster diversity and sustainability. They operate and communicate ethically, professionally, and with the participation of communities, offering varied experiences for education, enjoyment, reflection, and knowledge sharing, which is really quite important and has been underscored by two of our keynote speakers, as well as the organizers that have approached us. So I just want to show you an example of why something like this is really quite important. This is a story of a museum, a university museum that became a national museum. So in 2010, the Museum of Natural History in Berlin celebrated its 200th year. The museum is a merger of three museums that came into being in 1810 when Berlin's Friedrich Wilhelms Universität unter den Linden was founded. So it was a combination of the anatomical, zootomical museum, the mineralogical museum, and the zoological museum. So the collections were brought together over more than 2 centuries from all over the world. And it's really quite fascinating due to its significance. So I showed you these bottled specimens a while ago, and this was a stunning way of displaying all their collections. It's like an open storage. And so we've been working with this Berlin Museum when I was still at the National Museum of the Philippines. And so it was one of my last function was to continue our kind of combined our collaboration with other universities in the Philippines to kind of present education, science education in among schools. So this is really quite a fascinating setup. No? This was found in their ground floor, and it is a digitization project. You know, where they started with their entomology collection. They have like about 30 million entomologists. They said because it's so small, then they should start it. So what they did was actually not, you know, because it's very expensive to digitize, as you all know. They worked with a Dutch company, a photographic company, Pictoric, and they, you know, it's like a collaborative project where so that it was also a way of testing the camera. So they used all the, you know, they took pictures of the smallest, even the labels of each one of them. And on the other side of this hall was actually, you know, the finished specimens, and we even had videos to explain to you know, the audience what they're trying to do, why they're doing this, and all that. So it's really quite interesting. Sorry. That they have all these features. And we congratulate really our colleagues in that field, because it's a difficult task, and it's not every day that people can actually appreciate something like this. And so when I asked our colleagues why they're doing this, no, and they, you know, this besides our collaboration with Cambodia, you know, they said so that people can actually develop their own science. And so that's the, you know, this enormous lesson for us all. So just to conclude, so in my experience as a professional manager of both university and national museums, I found that education programs meant for the public enhances their experience of the museum. It also emphasized the central role that museums can play in the social life of communities. They develop more accessible programs that promote the participation of more people. And a new definition, such as what I presented to you, should be update and emphasize what we have been doing and further reinforce our practice, especially to legislators, policymakers, and grant-giving managers. And finally, really, science can be fun and should be fun. And this is a feature from the Smithsonian magazine, no? So the curator at the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum said that, you know, ice cream itself is actually pretty ideal for space. The temperature aboard the space station is kept at around 75 degrees Fahrenheit. And so, you know, the idea of bringing ice cream on board with the astronauts featuring that, it's really quite a nice example of how science can be put together and be interesting. So thank you very much.
So thank you, Dr. Labrador. Thank you for your presentation. It's quite interesting since the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned that university museum can be also community center. It's quite interesting for this idea, and also for the conclusion that you try to persuade the museum workers to think about the sustainable way to work in the museum and for the museum work through the educational program and the other activity as well. So for the next speaker will be Dr. Balang Neung Sang. I would like to introduce him a bit. Dr. Balang Neung Sang will talk about the Marine Aquarium and Marine Science Museum for all. Dr. Neung Sang is currently the Director of Institute of Marine Science, Burapha University, Thailand. He has PhD Science and Technology Education, Mahidol University, Thailand. Concerning his experience, he conducted researches on fish endocrinology and science education with the University of Wisconsin Medicine, United States of America, supported by the Commission of Higher Education, Ministry of Education, Thailand, 2009. His research interests are, for instance, aquarium management, aquaculture, fish physiology, and his recent publications are quite related to his field specialization and interest. So please, Dr. Neung Sang, take the stage.
All right, thank you. Sawadee krab. Thank you for your introduction. Good morning. Thank you very much for arranging the valuable program for us. It is my honor to present our works and share experiences in the role of the University Museum at Burapha University. So let me introduce myself first. My name is Balang Neung Sang. I'm the Director of Institute of Marine Science, Burapha University, Thailand. And my topic today is the Marine Aquariums and Marine Museum for all. First, I will give you a brief of the overview of the Burapha University. Burapha University is not too far away from Bangkok. It takes around an hour from the international airport, Bangkok. And the university is located along the eastern coastal areas of the country. The university...
I'm sorry, Dr. Balang, could
Yes.
you start your presentation on the first page and click the full screen show?
All right, thank you. Sorry.
Please, thank you. Now we have the on the third slide. Could you go to back for the first slide? Okay. Is it okay, or would you like us to show the slide instead of you? Dr. Balang is okay. I'm trying. ไม่ทัน is it better that if I share the slide and you tell us to forward the slide when you want? Probably you just stop sharing slide and I will do it by our team. Okay. And try again toอาจารย์บัลลังก์ are you still with us? Hello อาจารย์บัลลังก์ are you still there? Okay, you just keep it in this way and you point the slide on the thumbnail on the left hand instead. Now you can start your presentation. It's okay as well to show like this. Yes, okay. Now it's okay. So you can start your presentation.
All right. Okay. Sorry for technical difficulties.
Yes,
so
please,
okay.
please continue your presentation.
Okay. So the university began as the Bangsan Educational College established on the 8th July, and Burapha University consists of the 22 faculties and 4 institutes and 1 college and 1 school, which is we are the comprehensive university. So Burapha University is a public university. There are 3 campuses, and as I think you already know about Thailand has a great diversity of marine natural resources. It has fertile, beautiful, and marine ecological systems, which creates many variables of the ecology of the country. And then the institute was developed by the teachers and students from the zoological museums and marine aquarium. With the financial support from the Japanese government, it's about 80 million baht at 38 or 39 years ago. So upon completion of the new buildings, His Majesty King Rama IX came to preside over the opening ceremony on the July 24. And with the objectives of learning and understanding of marine coastal resources and the way of optimal sustainable use of the marine and natural resources, and also learning as a research institute was established and given the name as a Institute of Marine Science, Burapha University. So the institute aims to be the centers of excellence in marine science research and academic service. Hence, the main missions of the institute embrace research, academic service, and support the marine science teaching under highly efficiency and administrative. The aquariums and museum serves as the lifelong learning center, and this combination of the knowledge and research output to the society. So the aquariums that you see on the slides and also marine science museums serve as the lifelong learning centers as well as the best known tourism attraction of the areas. So the institute also serves as the training Can you see the first slide?
Yes, so, please continue.
I could not forward my slide. Okay.
Is it better if we share from our part and you tell us to
Okay.
say the next?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Actually, I send you the PowerPoint.
Yes.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay.
Could you share with the PowerPoint, please? Not the PDF, please.
I have only the PDF. Can
Okay.
okay.
All right.
Okay. All right.
Because actually I have the video from my PowerPoint as well. So don't worry. Okay.
Okay.
So next, please. Or next, please. So as aquariums and museums, as I told you, we also serve training centers of marine science and technologies and other educational and non-educational institutes all over the country. The training can be tailor-made to other organizations according to our expertise in marine science. So next slide, please. So our aquarium can propagate the kinds of ornamental organisms, and we use those kinds of aquatic animals to exhibit in our facilities. So you see many ornamental organisms in these slides. But not only we exhibit those kinds of beautiful marine ornamentals, but we also provide the academic extension to all people from the small kids up to the oldest ones. Next slide, please. So the Institute of Marine Science, Burapha University, we received the honors of the award for being a model of the lifelong learning center from the Office of the Educational Council. And it is also certified by the Department of Tourism of the country. The Institute also have been granted and licensed to establish and operate the zoos or aquariums by the Department of Fisheries. So leading to the establishment and operation of the marine aquariums and marine museums. Next slide, please. So the Marine Science Museum, we not only extend in-house facilities, but also we try to educate people along the countries by using the marine science camps, which is about more than almost 25 years, and many participants, let's say like almost 500 participants who participate this marine science camp established as our institute. Next slide, please. So we also use our knowledge and experiences to raise the awareness to the public and community to concerns about the environmental impacts on environmental problems from the cost of living styles or even from the domestic. So we also try to encourage the people who would like to learn or studies in terms of marine science by using the educational training programs, as we call professional training. We do hope that we can encourage young staff or young people to help us as we do in our university. Next slide, please. So not only academic purpose for outside people, but also Burapha University is the has many facilities, and as we mentioned, we not only provide academic supports to people outside the university, but also for the students in your university and teachers in the university, they also use our facilities, not only mangrove aquariums and mangrove marine aquariums and marine museums as their university playgrounds. For example, you can see these activities established from the students from the Faculty of Arts, and they use their knowledge and experiences from their classrooms and establish kinds of the event at our our facilities. But before that, we share a lot about we would like to teach them and how they can use their knowledge to promote or to take them as a gain knowledge from these experiences. And also we establish kinds of the camp, but it's not normal camp like a marine science camp, but we try to encourage the local kids or local students to be the local guide, and we use our facilities to teach them and to give them more experiences to be a good local guides, and after that they can return to their hometowns and use those kinds of experience to be the local guide. And also we open the large aquarium at the end of this year, which is quite large. So we need support from Faculty of Marine Technology. So this is very good chance for students from marine technology. They can use their scuba diving experience to help us to clean up the tank and to prepare the animals in the aquarium as well. So next slide, please. So we also, because now that it is like new normal days, and we try to encourage or develop some exhibit, both the aquariums and museum, using the active learnings or an application, let's say like AR technologies or metaverse technology to enhance learners and visitors in many purposes, like not only for looking and walking through the exhibit, but they can participate or learn from those kinds of activities we provided. Next slide, please. So actually, the last slide is the video. However, all I present, which is we can focus on, we are the university which has the museum. We can use our marine research and integrate those kinds of research to education. So aquariums and museums at the Institute of Marine Science, we named it is the Marine Aquarium and Marine Museums Research Institute. So I think that's all of my presentation. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Dr. Nguyen Sang. It's quite interesting because it shows well that I think about what Dr. Chen said this morning about the networking between, even in the micro environment between the institution under the university roof, and you show well all the activity try to connect different faculties to work together and try to persuade people to think more about the environmental concern. So thank you very much, Dr. Nguyen Sang.
Okay, thank
so
you.
For the next will be Associate Professor Shao Ke. I would like to introduce a bit. Now, Dr. Ke is Associate Professor in Electronic Science and Technology Museum, University of Electronic Science and Technology of China. He will talk about the museum app where cultures meet and exchange. And his research interests include science communication, university museums, and history of science and technology. He works as the co-chair of UMA, or International Committee for University Museums and Collection, Futures which is the group of emerging professionals from university museum around the world. He led a team to develop the U Museum app, a location-based mobile database about the world's university museums and collection for iOS and Android with professionals from Portugal, Germany, and Australia. And presently, he is vice president in the Chinese Committee on History of Scientific Instruments and served as the editorial board member of University Museum and Collection Journal, or UMACJ. So please, Associate Professor Kerr, give your presentation.
Thank you so much, Chewazit, for the introduction. And let me share the screen. Share the screen. This one. All right, and thanks very much to the organizer. And good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm Zhao Ke from the Electronic Science and Technology Museum from China. In this presentation, I would like to share the case of the U Museum app and something beyond technologies. I'll spend a few seconds to introduce our museum briefly. The Electronic Science and Technology Museum locates in Chengdu City, which is the center of Western China, and with a population of 20 million. It has been the most important national base of electronic industry since 1950s. Our parental institution, the university, is the first radio university of China. Two disciplines, the electronic science and the technology, and the information and the communication engineering are at the first position in China's discipline ranking. So the university grows with the development of China's electronic industry. We built this museum with the strengths of history, disciplines, and the support from the industry. Compared with some traditional university museums, we got little university heritage, but 95% of our collections came from the 101 research institutions and companies. And these are the power from the electronic science and the technology industry. So why did we develop the U Museum app? When we were establishing our museum, we just wanted to know if there was any similar museum or university museum in the world. Are there any other interesting and great museums which deserves attention and to be learned from? The only solution at that time was to check the homepage of different universities and to find their museums one by one. Otherwise, if you are a tourist traveling in a new city, you just want to visit the university museums, what can you do? To input university museums words in Google, TripAdvisor, or even 大众点评 in China. And 大众点评 means citizen reviews translated from Chinese. Everyone is able to rate the restaurants, the sites, and the stores. So we can see citizen sizes everywhere. We will literally get the incorrect and incomplete results. You can see the results in the orange box. It's not even a university museum though. And for now, except most of us are using smartphones, so we could check the information whenever and wherever, compared with the database in computers. And the location-based information is much more portable. So in July 2018, the president of UMAC, Marta Lourenco, and I discussed and proposed the idea of U Museum. And our museum and the UMAC signed an initial MOU in September 2018. After 1 month, our team members, some students, Marta Lourenco and Martin Stricker, we had the first online meeting. In January 2019, we got the first version, first UI version, as you can see here. It's very cool and colorful. I prefer the first one because it seems like the next year we'll have some new members from the moon or Mars, and we are extending not in a university way, but in a universal way. In July 2019, we confirmed the final version. It looks white and blank. In September 2019, the app passed the Apple's check and on the App Store, launched on Google Play as well. So we keep testing and iteration till now. And here is the timeline of the UI evolution, like human beings, from the draft to the universal one, from the colorful one to the blank one. We just want to concentrate more and focus more on the university museums, reduce possibilities of discrimination and inequality, makes the app focused. The launch of this app provides a platform. So what can we do with your museum? Some features are provided. When you enter one museum page, you can remember whether you have been to it, lighting the footprint button. And you will get your footprints of university museums in the homepage and in the profile. Or you are able to see the comments when pressing the comments button. Considering the cultural differences, such as different colors, some icons and logos, I've never thought of those things before, nor has my student team, but those are exactly where cultures meet and exchange. So in my opinion, that is also a way of education. Coordination and unity, it's an internal topic. A tourist may want to know what university museums are nearby. And besides, feedback channels can help the app iterate better. The key point is to consider what users actually want. At last, we established the community, the communication community. Now there are 3681 university museums around the world in the database. And how can one university museum join us? Just submit your museum's information through uMuseum. Everyone participates in establishing the database. So when you enter the community part, there are areas for most viewed museums and most discussed comments. It is a communication community that all users establish together, where cultures from all over the world meet and exchange. Of course, it is a cooperation project with UMAC. It aims at making university museums more visible, supporting professionals, share more, and helping citizens to understand more. And thanks to our student members, they came from different backgrounds. Most of them have graduated and entered world-class companies, Facebook, Microsoft, Google, and Ali. It means an educational activity for them. And of course, Marta Lorenko and Martin Stricker and Professor Xieling, my colleague, they contributed a lot to this project, and the entire UMAC University Museum community helped to test the pilot version and gave lots of feedback. And when looking back and analyzing the development of uMuseum, I realized it's a communication process at 3 levels. At the first level, uMuseum is a platform, which is kind of the one direction communication. At the second level, uMuseum is audience-centered. It considers users' needs as much as possible. It's a community for all, not only for the professionals, but also for all those citizens who are interested in university museums and heritage. At the third level, when we engage in the communication, the culture from different districts will meet and exchange here. We can share what we are thinking about with others from the opposite of Earth. The development was before the COVID-19. It broke the time and the space limitation with technology. And what's more, over these years, as we apply more technologies to museums, we also dialectically think about some of the issues technology brought. Technology creates more connections between people and between people and museums. Meanwhile, it takes some exclusions as well, and they are easy to be ignored. So we may face technology disabilities, people who hate technologies and people who has higher cognitive needs. We have made some attempts to fill the gap. The volunteer position named Information Accessibility Guider was set at our reception. This volunteer will help and guide the elder or the disability to use the technology to visit and experience in the exhibitions. We try to use the temperature of humanity to fill the gap between technology and the citizens. Similarly, we have the same role in many other works. When facing with the digital inclusion and the exclusion, I can't help but think about what is the best digital practice in the museum. Personally, I think the first thing is audience-centered. The second point is to keep space, just as there are always gaps between the tracks for protection. When we have 100% technology, we may only need to use 80%. The rest is for fault tolerance or comfort. And the final point is to keep temperature. It might be a better way to use the temperature of humanity to warm and fill the gap between citizens and the technology, as the gears need lubrication. So that is all from me today. Thanks very much.
So thank you, Dr. Kerr. It's quite interesting and to see that now the initiative can also gather the university museums around the world and to present them to the public. And also the digital platform can engage the people and create the exchange space between people and try to create the communities and sub-community between them. So thank you very much for your presentation. We will go to the last speaker, but not least. So I would like to introduce a bit about Mr. Kasha Kayadi. He will address on challenges for university museums in Indonesia, case of Museum Zoology, ITB. He has a Bachelor of Science from School of Life Sciences and Technology, Bandung Institute of Technology, Indonesia. Now he has been curator of the Museum Zoology, ITB, School of Life Science and Technology, Bandung Institute of Technology since 2017. He is responsible for managing and curating samples and specimens for education and research related to zoological study, as well as database management of museum specimens. He has experiences of guiding visitors and explaining about museum specimens. His article in various international publications on news findings of terrestrial creatures, particularly in Indonesia archipelago. So please, Mr. Kayadi, take the stage.
Thank you, Mr. Chawasit. Let me share screen first. Is my screen open?
I see the presentation already, and then you click the full screen show.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me as a speaker to this event. This time I will present a case of our museum, MZI, as a sample of Indonesian University Museum. how it's currently managed, challenges and prospects for the future, especially reflecting upon the pandemic. So according to Boylan, there are 4 roles of university museums. First, the museum is for collection storage and curation, for research and education, and lastly, museum is providing the public service. How about University Museum in Indonesia? Based on our government regulation regarding museum, the role of the museum is to maintain, develop, utilize, and communicate its collection to society. There are more than 4,000 universities exist in Indonesia. However, only 49 university museums have been listed. 12 of it categorized as natural history museum, and only 7 zoological university museums have been listed, including ours. Today, we have an unclear issue regarding our position based on the policy. So we try to tell what's going on here in Indonesia through this paper. We made our museum as a case by evaluating our museum documents and papers, museum visitation in 2017 until 2019, and extract the information from the former and later managers, senior lecturers, and the faculty staffs. Here's some of the results. So MZI founded in 1950s in collaboration with European and North American researchers. In 1960 until 2000, collection and maintenance were conducted by a curator, professors, and also students with a keen interest in taxonomy and zoological study. In 2018, MZI was relocated from main campus in Bandung to here now in Jatinangor campus to allow a bigger working space for a curator and a bigger storage of specimens. As we can see, this is the updated data on our collections, start from invertebrates and vertebrates that quite representative for education and other services. We also provide the range of collectionnaire in each of the taxa. As we can see, the bird is now the oldest collection we have. Now we also provide educational services for students and professional services, but active research not yet conducted. Here's the data gathered from this evaluation. We can see indeed the visitors mainly come from West Java province, Indonesia, with some visitation from other provinces and countries. The visitation mainly purpose is simple as just looking around the museum collections and to get an animal determination service, mainly for students' final thesis. So we think that if we have a better management, it can generate better work quality, and what we will get is a higher trust from visitors, and we can feel it now. We are starting to increase the number of collections in cooperation with other institutions like National Conservation Agency, etc. Also, increasing information accessibility to public using digitalization and online tools such as social media would be a great prospect for us. So our museum, like a lighthouse that can enlighten Indonesian biodiversity studies, especially in West Java province. Besides prospects, indeed, we are facing challenges. As mentioned earlier, visibility of our museum is still confusing. Also, as mentioned by Dr. Jing Hon Chen this morning, the condition is the same, that our staff is limited now. Just two of us here to maintain all the process in the museum. So the work acceleration is still low. We also face the problem on collection level transcription and device availability for digitalization. And suddenly another challenge arrives, the COVID-19 pandemic that ruins not only us, but also the world. This pandemic makes limited, even at the moment restricted access to campus. We are close to public visitors, therefore most of the functions are not initially applicable, but we tackle this challenge through online service in the form of virtual tour facilitated by the faculty to increase the accessibility to the information of our museums. We also provide the link in the chat so you all can access in your free time. Moreover, to tackle the challenge, we use the globally reliable citizen science platform, iNaturalist, to make our work easier in terms of monitoring recent records of biodiversity in Indonesia, especially in our surroundings in West Java. Bioram, with the tagline "From backyard to the world," is a spirit to encourage anyone, from family, students, local people, even professionals, who has keen interest in recording and observing surroundings wildlife and reporting to the platform. And now the results just keep growing. We have projects to record recent animal biodiversity around our residence in Jatimar campus. We have small projects that merge with related courses in particular study program. And we also have been following related projects to support our activities and programs. So I try to make some conclusion of the sharing that we have been able to serve 3 out of 4 roles in 2017 until 2019. The education functions are preserved through virtual tour website. Our prospects on Indonesian biodiversity studies, especially in our surroundings in West Java, will be reached by increasing collections and visitors through sustainable collaboration and connectivity. Also, we are very sure that the citizen science approach would make our work more easier. Our future plans that we hope this can make our museum better are work on the staffing problem, make the stakeholders collaboration stronger, then make the clear status of all our old specimens and make specimens accessible online. To keep connected, here are some of our contacts. You can follow our Instagram account or you can see our website or send us an email for all of information needed. Thank you all the committees and participants for this opportunity. Thank you to School of Life Sciences and Technology and Human Resource Development Department of ITB, Merdeka.
So thank you, Mr. Kayadi. So thank you for all presenters, for invited speakers to share your experiences. And I found that when you mentioned about the university museum, particularly its role to society, each one used a specific word to represent the role of university museum. Firstly, when Dr. Labrador start your presentation, you mentioned that university can be community museums, and it's quite interesting because you try to persuade us to think about the link between university and also the communities, not only throughout the Philippines, but also the communities worldwide, something like that, I think. And secondly, when Dr. Nguyen Sang mentioned the word playground for university museum, I think it's quite interesting because you mentioned various activities that try to gather different people, different group of people, particularly students from different faculties to work together, and not only in the scientific way, but also artistic way as well. And for the third, when Dr. Kerr mentioned about the digital platform, I think the word that can represent about University Museum is something like global connection through the digital platform. So now, I mean, university can also play the big role, not only in specific location, but also in worldwide connection as well. And lastly, when when Mr. Kayadi mentioned about the lighthouse, I think it's quite impressive word that you try to use, because the lighthouse means much of things as well. So if I would like to ask about a question for four of you, that if we think more about the university museum that go beyond their location and try to, how to say, to make connection between university museum within the country or internationally, how it can be possible and what kind of activity can be created and to work together between university museum, I mean, among the local or regional level. So probably Dr. Labrador, if you would like to share your perspective. Unmute อาจารย์ Labrador.
Okay, I think one of the things that sometimes perhaps we forget is that the university museums have historical and quite exceptional collections. And I think that really has done a lot for, you know, for some of the university museums all over the world. I mean, you've seen something like what Berlin has done, you know, 30 million entomology collections. So it's really no joke, no? But also they have like, you know, treasure troves like art and exceptional artworks and ethnographic materials. It's really up to us as, you know, managers of the museums to see, you know, the value in them and how we could interpret them and, you know, animate them for not just the students, the learners, or even the faculty members of the university, but to go beyond that, because the university does not sit in isolation, and it actually has a community around it. And I think that's one of the things that could inspire, you know, certain projects, and, you know, this kind of recollection of what those you know, what exhibitions they have in the museum. So just various ways of reaching out. And you know, since I wrote that article, there's been really you know, an enormous leap in a lot of things, like, for instance, digital. And so we have to address, for instance, even the digital divide, how we can use that. For instance, you know, like, what kind of language do we use? Perhaps we have programs on our apps, no, for using on our smartphones, and so that people can understand what we're trying to say. So there's been a lot of that, but also the pandemic has taught us to be mindful, to, you know, we can't go back to the way we were behaving, you know, and how we were, you know, a lot of our gaps were actually exposed during the time when you know, the pandemic happened, when we had to close down, and it continues, and so we have to be really more circumspect about the programs that we have. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So Dr. Nung Sang, would you like to share your perspective as well?
Yes, thank you. In my point of view, I think we should have the strong networking between the museums, not only for the university museums, but also for the museum in the national levels and in the international level as well. This is quite important. And then I think I'm not quite sure for other university museums has their own standards, but in terms of our marine aquarium, we have to get the standards because we are we are the academic museums, so we should be the leaders or the consultants of the marine aquariums. I think I mean in terms of this, but for other aspects like Dr. Labradors and other speakers said, so we have to our own standards, or even we don't have our own standards, but we have to, let's say, like best practice, because nowadays we have our own experiences more than, let's say, like someone has more than 30 years. But for the younger generations, if we don't have the good best practice for them or prepare the young staff to continue our works, that would be have a bit problems in the near future. And for the pandemic, as I think all over the world face off this, and also the Burapha universities as well, we have to close our aquarium, let's say like almost 2 years. Because we let the aquatic organisms, they have to we have to use electricities, we have to feed them by foods, so it costs a lot. So especially if normally about 400,000 visitors visit us a year, so it means we get that kinds of the budget of money to support our activities. But that's why if you will see at almost last slides of my presentation, I would have to develop kinds of technology, which is the virtual museums, or we use other technology, let's say like AR or even the metaverse, to instead of that, if just in case is there any outbreak in the near future, we can do our own business. We can find some kinds of budget to serve our activities. That's all my opinions, ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nung Sang. It's quite interesting. So, Dr. Kerr, would you like to share your point of view about my questions?
Thank you, Chairwosit. This is a huge question we have to face with in the past time and in the future. And I would like to quote from a philosophy in China, Lao Tzu, his Taoism. Because for me, I'm a new guy in the university museum, so I always think about this question: how to make a university museum more visible in the country, in the national level, at the international level. So I think from Taoism, we should stick to the Tao. Tao means spiritual thing, the theory, the nature of the world. So I think the nature of the university museums may be the spirit of pioneer, to be the first one, to be the first to be at the first position, and to be most creative. That is the spiritual thing of university museum. So that is the core of us. So and the second one is network. Just now some speakers have mentioned, because there is a very interesting sentence in UMAC community. If you want to go fast, go along. If you want to go further, go together. So that is an obvious conception we should remember. And the third one is the methods. How to do? How can we do it? It's just the shoe from Taoism. There's only different methods, different approaches, change from time to time. So we should just follow the times and go beyond the contemporary technology or science or thoughts and just try, because we are university museums, we have professors, we have disciplines, we have students, and the students are most creative in the period of their college life. So I think the theory, the Tao from our core conception and the methods we can just try. So that's just my personal opinion. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So, Dr. Kayadi, would you like to share your point of view?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chawas. Basically, I agree with other speakers about the reasons. And when I learned from the pandemic where we can't have access to campus and can work physically with specimens, we can learn that the work of the small little even a little thing can be has a massive effect to the society. For example, our activities now to apply to more close to the society, to the citizen. We can share our problems and they can help to fix our problem. For example, to record in our specific field, to record the surrounding biodiversity. We can work on our hands. We have only 2 hands. We have to take more people to participate with other people to record the biodiversity like around us. And Indonesia is like a mega diversity countries, but the data itself, I don't know, we can access it freely or easily. So we start from the small thing to and hope to get the better or bigger effect to the society. That's why I think.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Kayadi. So I think the time left very least. I would like to take this opportunity for each to give a minute for each speaker to share your last words for this session in the morning. That probably how you how to say, to encourage the university museum to play its role to the society, not only for the civic science literacy, not only for the project concerning the citizen science, but also about the voices of the different members of society. How would you like to encourage the university museum worker to work more with the society as well? So please, Dr. Labrador, the last words for you for this session, please.
Yes, I think given that we're still going through the pandemic and all sorts of epidemics now that might happen. I mean, we have monkeypox, for instance. We really need to assess, and I think the university and university museums can help us think this through, that, because we apply anyway science in what we do in the museums, like for instance, even doing conservation work, or even the idea of preventive conservation, where we think about the museum environments. I think it's high time that we, as I mentioned earlier, about being mindful and creating programs so that we also empower our staff. They think, in terms of multidisciplinary work. And I think they should also kind of imagine this possibility of, creating our museums, university museum, as healing spaces, so that those who feel that the pandemic has affected them not only physically, but also there's some that have been affected, even if they didn't catch COVID, their mental health, and there is that possibility for programs to be more in line with that. So, there's so much more work that we could do. And I really congratulate the National Science Museum for organizing this symposium. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lavador. So for Dr. Ng Sang to give your last words, please.
Okay, for myself, I think we have to look forward and prepare ourselves and prepare our organizations regarding to the new change, which we could not predict what gonna occur in the near future. So this is quite important for us as well. And the second one, we could not do by our own. Even your institute have many staffs in many disciplines, but you have to work together or integrate many technologies or many knowledge, even not only in the national level, but also in international levels or network. So I think this is a good chance for us to sharing our experiences and know each other. And then I think it's not be the last event that we will meet, but I think we have to keep in touch and then develop together in terms of the university museums. That is my words. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ng Sang. So next, Dr. Ke, would you like to share your last words?
Yeah. Thank you so much for this invitation to participate in this event. I'm so honored and grateful for the work you have done, Chevasit, and the National Science Museum. And for us, University Museum, for me, I think because in the past 2 years, we have all faced the disaster, and we have, yes, as other speakers mentioned, we have looked forward. And to be university museums, we should be pioneer as always. And we can keep in touch and to make more work with cooperation and network or something like that. And as I just said, let's just work together and we can go further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ke. So last but not least, Mr. Kayadi, would you like to share your last word for this session?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chevasit. Thank you for the organizing committee to help this event. I agree with other speakers, collaborate more, work together to get the bigger results. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much. I see the time is quite on schedule. So on behalf of the National Science Museum Thailand, We are appreciated for your participation. The four invited speakers, Dr. Labrador, Dr. Nguyen Sang, Dr. Kerr, and Mr. Kayadi. Thank you deeply for your participation. And also thank you for the attendance. We will continue in the afternoon with the session entitled The Impact of Citizen Science Projects on Society and the Public. So we will have about an hour for lunch, and then we at about 13 hours, 1 p.m., we will reconvene to continue the last session. So enjoy your lunch and see you at 1 p.m. Thank you. Bye.